Hi, we're standing out in front of the community center where we're getting ready to do a opportunity forum about patents, copyrights, and trademarks in the fast-growing cannabis industry. And with me is Alan and Chris of your
Leach Tishman, we're a law firm located in Pasadena, California, with our offices out of Pittsburgh. And I'm going to be discussing some issues today about business and cannabis, and my colleague Alan will be talking about trademarks and IP patents.
All right, I think it's going to be very interesting and very informative and should be really good. So come on and join us.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hueneme Chamber Lunch and Learn. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for everyone who is watching this live feed or in a later video. I would like to introduce to you Leach Tishman firm. And what they will be discussing today is cannabis at another level. As many of you know, Hueneme is kind of been on the frontier of cannabis. Well, now the business model has gone to the next level. Intellectual property, copyrights, trademarks, just like any other business. And we are trying to help those in this space go to that next level. We're also trying to help people that are coming out here to get in this space understand and learn what that next level is. So I'd like to introduce Chris and Ellen, who will happily do their little presentation, and then from there we'll open it up for questions and answers.
Thank you very much. Well, everyone, my name is Christopher Gonzalez. I'm a lawyer for the last 25 years, a partner at Leach Tishman out of our Pasadena office in California. My colleague Alan Kindred, the partner as well. He'll discuss some issues after. It's very difficult for us in a very short period of time to give you a really good overview of this industry. From a legal perspective, as a lawyer, it's difficult to find one firm or one person that can do it all, because it just can't. It's one of the industries that I've noticed in the last 25 years that touches every aspect of the law. It's definitely on the line for certain people, in the sense of it falls on the gray area side for some, and it falls on the legal side for others, which I think is where the community is kind of stuck in right now. Many of you have asked some questions earlier, and that's kind of where we're sitting. So we're going to try to give you a general overview. I'm going to address it from a perspective of the life cycle of a business, and to understand how a life cycle of a business comes, how you get involved in the life cycle of the business, from startup to issues that deal with everyday, day-to-day operations issues, maybe some HR issues. I'm going to address specifically an area that deals with the intellectual property side of it, trademarks, patents, and those areas. So I'm going to go for about 20 minutes. I'm going to actually grab my stopwatch so I don't put the time for You get a time? Yeah, that's perfectly fine. I know we got about an hour to do here from taking a break from other stuff. So our slide projector has a listed, so I'm just going to kind of generally go over some stuff with you. The biggest first thing is there's a dichotomy right now going on between federal law and state law. Many of you might know that. So for those who don't know, there's a large discrepancy in how cannabis is being treated. There is cannabis that contains THC, CBD, there's hemp, there's medical, there's adult use. Right now, for the federal standpoint, cannabis is considered, that contains THC, is considered Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substance Act. And that means, essentially, it's being equated with, of all things, heroin. People don't really understand that. Where on Schedule 2, Oxy is considered on Schedule 2. So if you think about the differences in what that ramifications are, they're quite significant. So the government has, this is the federal government, has taken that and treated it to the extent that they're treating this as one of the most high-level drugs that are using that term, possible. Where they're put to have other drugs, we'll say on the list, like not as quite as impactful, I think, to users. That have lower schedules, so the sentencing is different. That creates a large issue with all of our states. I'll go kind of generally with regard to the states, and I'll focus on California. So we've got all these states with different rules, different laws, different jurisdictions, and within that, why you see this breakage, I find, of some states saying we'll accept to do it, and others saying, well, we will not. Obviously, California is taking the lead on doing it. Your city here, Hueneme, is taking a very large lead. We're being a very small, and you realize how small it was until just today. I think it's 4 square miles, am I correct in that? Which is extremely small with very limited land. Some of, obviously, you're landlocked. and you have very limited space with your residents and with your businesses. So the fact that you're taking the lead on that is pretty commendable. When the proposition passed to have legalization of marijuana in this state, people believed this was going to be the opening of a large flood of money, business, etc. When you really look at it, only about 30-35% of the communities and municipalities in the state are actually benefiting or using the law to promote their city, to create revenue. And within that, only a few licenses or a few opportunities are being available. So the large pool, which you have for the entire state of California, is really kind of getting dwindled down to municipalities, and then dwindled down within those municipalities to the limited amount of licenses that are available. So with that, what I'd like you to think about when starting or getting involved in the business is, where do I want to be able to, where can I fit in, first of all, since it's very competitive in certain markets. In our own city, our office is in Pasadena, California, and they just offered 6 licenses, I believe it is. And I think there's 150 or 160 applicants, some of them being very large players in the game that are recognized nationwide, and some very small, we'll say, mom and pop operations, and they're now reducing them to 6. And of course, there's a lot of limitations on that with respect to how to go about meeting those needs and those requirements. At any point in time, I ask you if you have questions, hold your questions to the end, and we'll get to them. Write them down. You got some paper for you, so just hold on to them, and we'll address them. And go from there. And forgive me since I have to scroll through my slides. One of the initial things people don't realize is the giant impact monetarily it will have in the community, and I say the community not just in the state of California, but from a nationwide perspective. Right now, the forecast for recreation use is about $7 billion. When you think about that, I believe Netflix is about a $6 billion business. I think McDonald's is about an $11 billion business. Beer, I think, is a $100 million business. So for a business coming in, that's kind of coming in fresh, it's making a pretty big impact. That's just for 2019 we're talking. These are annual numbers. They expect by 2022, we're probably going to have a total of about, overall, including medical use, about a $25 billion business. So it's going to become we have beer and wine, then we have cigarettes, and then we have cannabis. That's what it's going to be. And then all the rest of our other commodities that are sold and services that are sold within the United States. So it tells you how much of an impact it's going to have. Those states that are not participating, obviously will have some ways to go and catching up. But those that are participating, including the municipality like this one, are probably well ahead of the game. I look at where we are as far, and I bring that concept earlier about why it's such a small market. I look at the California market as a little bit of a desert in a sense in this space right now. Big huge rush to get this on the ballot, voted, passed, or kind of a little bit I look at is a little bit of a lull in the sense that the rush is hit, and now we're all kind of gathering and figure out where do we go from here? What do we do from here? Government on the side of Sacramento, obviously some that are in favor, some aren't. It's okay, no problem with that. But it's the smaller communities like these that are really going to either place it on the map for a long time to come, and it will be, but really make it tomorrow. And I say a lull because, again, remember, only 30%, 35% of the municipalities in this state are being utilized in the law. It's very small. And then within, again, so if you look at it, it's not as big as some think, but it has such a great impact with only the small uses out there right now. Just to think, there's something to think about. I'm not going to bore you with all the laws that back it up, from the Controlled Substances Act to the Federal Farm Bill to our California law. It would take an entire session to do that, and I don't think that's the purpose for today. This is more, I understand there's some people in here who are brand new to the industry, want to know what's going on. Some who don't really have very much knowledge, and there's some other sophisticated people. So it's difficult for me and Alan to address all the spectrum. So we're going to try to limit it to, I'm going to try to limit it to general issues. Again, if I give any advice when starting or getting involved in business, transparency. Cannot emphasize that enough. From ownership to investors to regulatory operators, I put these in quotes because these are all definitions within the law that, when you look at the statutes, change constantly. I had the fortune enough to be able to go to law school in Spain for a semester 27 years ago. And I remember going to a museum and sitting at the Louvre on a weekend in Paris, and I sat there and I looked at this thing, and it was an incomplete sculpture. And I was like, why is that so pretty to people? To me, it didn't make any sense. And I kept looking at it, and I laughed, and I was like, no big deal to me. But I went back and I tried to figure out, how do we take that piece, similar to what we're in now, and try to develop that into what the state wants to do. And I look at the state right now a little bit fractured in that it looks like that incomplete piece. We're not completely there to develop into the, Tom will say the Michelangelo, or everyone called it David. And so it's a piece that's sitting that can be really carved out to be really, really nice. But we have a couple of laws and issues that are constantly changing, so it's a work in progress. This is a work in progress. That's my point. It's not going to be done for a while. Obviously, we have some banking issues we'll deal with, some other issues like that we'll talk about. So, if you're looking for direct, lawyerly answers, straight black and white answers, you're not going to get them. I just can't give them to you. I don't think any lawyer can, because every day there's a new tweak to a statute. Our statutes, unfortunately, we waste a lot of paper, even though we want to go digitally, because they're constantly, okay, I got to redline this, or I got to yellow highlight this, and what have you, and they're changing. All right, so with regards to getting involved in the business, what I'd like to say to you is this, if you're transparent, you're going to be ahead of the game. If I give you another topic, is be organized. Make sure, there's someone here, I don't know where it is, but new business, just got licensed. I cannot emphasize enough, organize. Have your paperwork in hand. If you think you need an extra piece, get an extra piece of paperwork. However you structure it, whether you structure it as an entity, an LLC, a corporation, make sure you're having some of those issues in place as well. But the biggest thing you take away as a brand new startup is whoever you bring in as your partners, be organized. The compliance departments in the city or the regulators are going to look at them, are going to fall back and ask, okay, well, who's Chris Gonzalez? What's his background? Obviously, during the application process, you have that information, but if you have a potential owner, regulator, operator, manager, what have you, in certain applications, you don't need to list those individuals. On the other side, you can just list them. So there's these two different things going on. So I would err on the side of caution and have as much information about your structure to show that you're acting in good faith. That's really the big issue. There's not a lot of case law out there right now. There's not a lot of challenges out there right now. There will be. And if anyone comes to you as a regulator, you're ready to have all the information. Obviously, for those who don't know, I don't recommend you running your business by yourself as a sole proprietor. It doesn't seem to make any sense. I would use some sort of form of entity just as an additional precaution. It does not eliminate the fact that you might be potentially liable from a civil side, but it reduces it. But from a criminal side, you can't get away from it. So you can't create an entity, structure an entity, and then say, I'm going to hide behind an entity, and I have no criminal liability. That's not the case. You still can break the law and be held accountable. Other people who are getting involved in the business, some of them are looking to buy businesses or start from scratch. Those are issues to think about too. So as you get involved in the cannabis business, know your partners, know the product, know who you're going involved with. If you decide to be an investor in a business, figure out whether you understand completely who you're going into a partnership with. And with that, right now there's also a slight, small little issue going on with people who are, I call in the gray area, who might have been engaged in conduct that might have been under the radar, we'll say, not following the rules, that want to get into the legal side of it. And there's a whole social equity issue going on with individuals of that sort. And for those who don't know, the social equity side relates to individuals who might have been disenfranchised or didn't have the opportunities or have a poor background, that are not being allowed to get licensed because of their historical background. If you are transitioning into that, which a lot of people are, a lot of people are running under the radar, and it's going to happen. Other people call it the black market, I call it the gray market. I don't think it's really black, I think it's just sitting there as gray. There's a way for you to do that. There's definitely a way for you to do that. And in doing so, what I recommend you doing is seeking out counsel, whether it be a lawyer, consultants, tax advisors, again, your team, wherever that team is. I recommend the team, and we both would recommend a team is obviously a legal team, a financial team. I would also look at a compliance team, which sometimes are one and the same. who can advise you in that respect. And definitely an accountant, good tax-based accountant, because right now there's some big tax issues, and you can't, without going into detail, you can't write off a lot of your expenses and get the benefit of the tax code for it. So it's unfortunate right now where you have to declare the money, although it's all cash, but you can't really write off a lot of the expenses related to it. So it's this unique IRS dichotomy that many businesses are in.
It's only federal level or state as well?
It's right now the federal level, it's the biggest one, really.
Right, but on the state you can do it?
There's submission on the state side as well. There are submissions on the state side. You know, the other big issue, and again, is when you're going into the business, is determine whether you're going to touch the flower or not touch the flower. Those are two different worlds. If you're going to cultivate, make, manufacture, or you're going to do production products. Doesn't mean the liability is different, but doesn't mean you're absolved because you don't touch the plant. Be clear on that. People think just because I'm not touching the plant doesn't mean I can have no liability. That's not the case. So don't think that way. It's not actually accurate. I tend to find that people think that, well, I'm just going to make vapes or cartridges or what have you. I'm going to make some accessories. And in the reality is that sometimes by doing that, you can create more problems because you may not meet the rules related to how to sell, how to inform. That's another issue, getting information out to the public. You may have a defective product issue. So it doesn't absolve you completely from liability side of it. With regards to someone who wanted to get involved with the business with relation to investing in the business. Again, I know I'm going over a lot of different topics, and I'm running different time. I'm trying to get through as much as I can. And that people ask me, say, "What? Chris, I got $100,000, $200,000, I get $1 million. I want to invest in the cannabis business." Great. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Tell me where I should go. I have no clue where I can tell you to go. What do you want to do? Do you want to be on the planting side, the manufacturing side? Do you want to be on the post-production side? Where do you want to go? Again, I go back to say, know your product and know your people. That's like any investment you make. Anyone comes to me to invest in any business, I tell them, know the product or the service, and know the people you're getting involved with. If you have those two down and you're trusting in that, then you can make any investment in it. They will, I want my name on the license. I can't tell you about that either because some jurisdictions require full disclosure. Similar to what the banks have been doing with the anti-money laundering. They want to know who the true owner of the bank account might be. They don't want to know, well, it's an entity. Well, who owns the entity? This comes up very big when trusts have ownership in an entity. You may have 30 trustees in that trust. You may have to list all of them, which means grandma who lives in New Jersey may have to be listed because she's a trustee of the trust. She may have no clue what you're doing. That's a problem. Or maybe grandma, maybe not. Some people don't want to be listed. So that's another big issue. Obviously, you can fund your businesses for those who are looking for money, self-funded, venture capitalists, there's some money out there. Obviously, it's always the friends and family around, or individuals, or debt financing of some sort. But each of those still requires, back to my first comment, if you take anything from today, transparency when you're doing structuring from a legal standpoint. I'm gonna eventually, in a few minutes, pass it on to Alan to talk about a few things from the intellectual property standpoint. This is a great time for Californians because we tend to be the leaders in almost all the coast seem to be the leaders in a lot of legal issues that come up, and we've done a great. I'm not knocking the state in any way. We've done a great job in it. It's now the issue now is the actual implementation. And that's where we're seeing all these hangers. The laws, some might be a little bit tweaked here, get tweaked there. The big one before I can pass on now is banking right now. They can't bank anymore. So if you've ever seen a pallet of cash, it's the most amazing thing to see. It's also the scariest thing to see.
Yeah.
So I was somewhere, and we'll be nameless, and there was 2 pallets of cash. And I was told that each pallet is roughly $2 million. I'm not sure if it's accurate or not, but it's pretty amazing to see, and it's very frightening to see. Because what happens if someone came in right then and wants to take that? It'd be very done very easily. It's very scary. Someone asked me earlier about what kind of opportunities you have for banks, credit unions, state chartered banks, federal banks. There's really the banking. There's a bill, by the way, so you know there's a bill in front of Congress right now that is actually a bipartisan bill to have banking implemented. For lack of better terms, to save that. Which is going to send it by the end of the year. So maybe by the end of the year we'll have an answer. That is, to me, the biggest hurdle right now, because that creates that gray-black market. People aren't, you can only, for many of you who don't know, you can only bring in so much cash to the bank each deposit. If you bring too much cash, it requires them to provide a SARS report, suspicious activity report, start putting those in. That then brings in anti-money laundering requests and discussions. So to go in and say, I'm going to give you $9,999 today, come back tomorrow and do the exact same thing, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. You're on the list, whatever that list that might be. So it's difficult. And that banking and how to pay relates to every business you do. Who's taking cash? I got to pay you $50,000. Okay, I'm going to wire the money. No, I'm going to give you $50,000. That's difficult. So with the banking, I think that's the biggest hurdle. Once that hurdle overcomes, it's going to be a big opener. Credit cards, banks, big banks. I think big banks are swallowing smaller banks, again, which happened years ago. Similar to what happened, I guess, in the Southeast many years ago. Many of the Southeast states they had a compact together, where they created a situation where they had their own little banking world, so they were not to basically keep Big Bank out. And guess what? Big Bank moved in. Bank of America is in North Carolina. They moved in. You can find any small banks in that compact anymore. So this is the biggest area, I think, for not only the state, but for everyone in the business. How to handle the financing. How to handle the accounting. Transparency, and remember transparency. How to pay bills, how to pay rent. And I'll get into some of this after Alan speaks. I'll get back into it about some of the business. These are the precursor business issues, but for the post, as far as how to move forward and move on with phase 2 of your operations and maybe eventually exit plan. But I find that banking and cash, armed guards, unfortunately, mayhem, death. There's been a lot of reports of shootouts. There's been a lot of reports of killings. There's been a lot of reports. And that's a lot. They're kind of under the radar, but they're out there. To move that money, frankly, I left, and an armored truck came a couple hours later and took it all. I don't know where it is. I presume they put in the bank. That's somehow. How I don't know though. That's a huge report. What do you do? So I find the banking area to be right now the biggest issue on the horizon for the entire industry. For the newcomers who are entering, there will be issues for them on how to handle that. Their credit unions are dealing with some of these issues. State chartered banks, but their big fear, remember, understand the fear why they're not, you don't see them up, is they don't want to lose their federal licensing. Or if they're getting federal funding, or if they're dealing with credit cards, it's all federal. That's the big issue. Now, some do take it, don't get me wrong. There are banks out there that will take your money, but then they charge you a premium. A huge premium in some cases. I've heard up to 10 times the amount of normal fees of a normal deposit. So it's enormous. All right, I'm going to press Alan. He's talk about intellectual property issues, and then I'll come back.
Thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Alan Kindred, and my area in the cannabis industry is intellectual property. Ask Microsoft, ask Apple, ask Jib Jab Media, what is your most valuable asset, the most valuable asset of your business? And all of them will say it's our trademark. Jib Jab Media will say it's our only asset. And those assets, as you know, are worth a lot of money. And the same applies in the agricultural world. The big businesses, wine, beer, even peanut butter and cigarettes, all agricultural businesses all have trademarks. And your trademark, I think if you really reflect on it, is probably your most valuable asset. And so what should you be doing to protect that? The trademark is your shining star out there in the heavens saying, this is my service, this is my product, I made it, it's good, and I stand by it. And that naturally attracts people with their money to come and buy those goods and services. So, your trademark, so why wouldn't you want to protect it? And you protect a trademark by registering it. In the cannabis world, that has not been so easy on the federal level lately, but it is changing, and it's changing dramatically, and there are ways around it. And because of the inroads that are being made in the federal area, that have been made already, and that will be made within the next 12 to 24 months. So when is the best time to start with your trademark, with your brand, with your getting your name out there? And the answer is before you even, when you're starting to think about it, in the very, very early stages, at the federal level, where there are ways around, cannabis products are illegal, not quite. I mean, for people to say CBD is legal, that is too much of a generalisation, and to say cannabis is illegal is again too much of a generalisation from a legal analysis standpoint. So you get onto that trademark, that brand, that logo, the name, right at the very beginning, and you go and protect it. Get it, draw that line in the sand. The wars are already going on. There's a cannabis company that initially called itself Stash and something. The Stash Tea Company comes in, stop it. Stop using Stash on cannabis products, and they filed a proceeding. The cannabis company was in its fairly early days, and it said, I can't afford to fight them. What am I going to do, attorney? And the attorney says, you've got to change your mark. Okay, we'll do that. That'll save us a lot of money. We'll now call it Cat and something. And along comes Caterpillar and does exactly the same thing. So these are things you need to be thinking about in the early stages, discussing with your attorney, getting clearance searches done, getting issues popping up, discussing it with your marketing and branding consultants. It's, as Chris said, it's your team. It's part of the early part of your team, because you don't want somebody else who can come along very easily, maybe even from another country, and start using your word, your logo, or something confusingly similar to it, and then trying to worry about how you're going to stop it. You might be able to. It will certainly, I promise you, it will cost you a lot more money to do it that way rather than getting it lined up first. So that's how I work with my clients on the trademark side of it. I want to see them succeed. And I want to see, that mark, that brand, that piece of intellectual property grow. So that's essentially trademarks. The other things you need to know about are patents. And there are two types of patent that are available in the cannabis industry. One is the utility patent, like a mousetrap or something that's useful article. That is, in the cannabis industry, that is particularly applicable to pharmaceutical products containing cannabis. You can get utility patents on pharmaceutical products containing cannabis. I mean, that doesn't mean the FDA is going to let them go on the market, but they are potentially patentable. The other type of patent available is called a plant patent, and that is for a plant that you develop essentially in the lab in an asexual way. So you're creating a completely new variety. They're plant patents, they're available too. And then there's this other hybrid thing, which is not exactly a patent, but it operates like a patent and it's enforceable like a patent, called a plant variety protection certificate. And that applies to asexual creation of a plant variety. It also applies to sexual development of a plant variety. And with all of these things like trademark and your patents, it gives you exclusivity. It gives you an easy way of getting into court and establishing and having all the difficult proof done up front that you're ready to go and shut the other people down. That's what I do. That's what I encourage my clients to do, again, as early as possible in the growth of their business. I'll now turn it back over to Chris. Thanks.
Well, it's a good transition with regards to patents. Californians will have one of the biggest issues: forget cannabis, forget your business, forget what you do. You can sell water, you can sell ice cream, you can sell cannabis. One of your biggest issues will be employees, no matter what. Unfortunately, not in favor of employers. It's the way it is right now. A lot of claims are going up. What happened? So with regards to the IP discussion, protect your IP within your own entity. Whether you need a non-disclosure agreement, whether you need invention agreements, whether you need assignment agreements, protect your intellectual property. In many cases, I look at IP and the business. We all know the famous Nike swoosh. That is, you know what the logo looks like. It looks like a little, half of a mustache, I call it. But you know that a mile away. You don't know what they sell. If you didn't know what they sell a lot of things. They actually, maybe get even food, to be honest, but sports products, right? That tells you how valuable that swoosh is. I look at Alan, and Alan's saying, get that done early. Do your homework early. Someone here is a brand new business. I don't know who it is, but someone here was talking about being a brand new business. And I get a chance to tell that person, intellectual property, protect it. You're going to have a name that comes up, and it's going to be swallowed up by someone else or someone who challenges it. I couldn't visit the Caterpillar one we talked about on the way here today. It was the cat in the cloud. How does Caterpillar, we're talking Caterpillar, the big, company, conglomerate company with those, the wheels 25, 30 feet tall, making, buildings and what have you around the world. That company challenged that patent. I'm sorry, that trademark. So, as I transition to the next discussion about phase 2, I call it, which is really running your business and getting the operational side of the business, the biggest issue I'm letting you know is employees. With regards to employees, there are issues that come up in this cannabis world with regards to who are your employees and what are their backgrounds. Fortunately, that can be a problem. Right now, there's a big issue from an immigration standpoint. Right now, there's a big crackdown. If individuals working for someone who are not documented or have limited or maybe even are documented, they're being scrutinized for working in the cannabis industry. Just coming down the last few months. It's another mechanism for the ability to use a complete unrelated thing, legal portion of the legal area, to try to prevent the cannabis world from possibly succeeding. Is that against the cannabis world? I don't think it is. I think it's more of an immigration issue, to be candid, than it is a cannabis issue. But it does raise issues because now you may have a workforce that may be completely legal and may be in the process of becoming legal. But you might just wipe that workforce, part of that workforce out. Because now there's a basis for denial. And you may ask why. You asked about a state issue. Is it the same for the state? This is a federal issue. Immigration is controlled federally, not a state issue. It's a federal issue. And with that, the federal government is saying, hey, look, It's a schedule, going back to my first 2 minutes of this conversation, of this presentation. It's a Schedule 1 non-deregulated, or not deregulated, it's a Schedule 1 issue. But it's heroin. I keep saying that. It's a bit mind-blowing that it can be medicinally well, and this is not a legal issue, but it's just thinking about it logically, that medicinally can be beneficial to some and not, and fine, and can be used as an adult use, scrutinized, and then federally they can say, I don't really care. So there's been some issues on that in the law and how it affects states. But so as you go through your business, employees are going to be your big issue, and with regards to protecting trademark-wise, patent-wise, confidentiality agreements, trade secrets if you're developing product. We use consistently, we call them invention agreements or invention assignments, which kind of cover them all. So that basically means that if an employee develops something while on the job within their capacity working for you in the course and scope, that may enhance a product that you say, well, they're going to say, that's mine, I'm leaving. No, if it wasn't for us, we wouldn't have it. So there's a way to protect that from having that exposed and not taken away from the business. These are issues you should look into. And if you haven't, please look into them. Find someone. Alan talked about team. I'm always a big proponent on team. I have a pretty simple philosophy on life, kind of a holistic idea of a team of life. A good partner, spouse, married, whatever you want to do, family, just one finger for that, all that covers it. A good medical team, a good financial team, a good legal team, a good spiritual team of some sort, and a great hobby. That's how I look at it. So in that, your business is kind of the same way. You look at, not saying those exact 5 pieces, but if you look at it, you got to have someone that fits in the puzzle and fits that piece for you very well. Okay, Alan can handle the intellectual property. All right, well, I need a good tax guy. Okay, I'm going to go with it. She's a phenomenal tax advisor. I need someone over here, might be a consultant to identify issues that we have with product development. Might be an operations issue, an R&D issue. These don't mean they're all legal. But at some point in time, you're going to eventually have, in the case of may have someone, some people have medical directors or physicians on staff. Why? To make better product. So when you're building your team, employees become your biggest, I think, aside from private liability. As you also go through it, we talked about different individuals that fit in the puzzle with regards to, you have landowners, you have growers, you have facilities, you have warehousing, laboratories, then you have on the other side of the coin processors who may do something either during the process and post-process, and then you have the retailers. Each of those different areas contain a whole different set of laws, from an ownership standpoint to a practicality standpoint of running the day-to-day operations. I get in this area there's going to be all indoor grows for the most part. There's no land, so there's a whole issue with regards to whatever the local ordinances are for that. There's also going to be some R&D issues just for yourself, and also protective issues from yourself. One of the big issues is, okay, is my exhaust system really working well? Because I'm not going to make the person on the 16th floor or 5th floor above me upset and going to file a claim for nuisance against me because they smell me throwing this or that. There's all these different little issues that as a grower you might come across. Obviously, it's outside in the farm situation a little different. There's a whole lab situation. I don't think there's any labs in the city yet, but that's another angle. You're going to need testing. You need laboratories to identify good, bad, and different, I guess is the way to put it. And also do strains and what's going on. That whole idea, think about of a pharmaceutical company. That's what they kind of do. The whole R&D, the whole quality control issues related to that are different than someone's growing. Versus a retailer, especially a retailer, who might have different areas that they need to do, or product. You've got issues with product. You have a line of products. I'm buying products from company A, company B, company C, company D, which turns into now a whole contractual issue. How do you deal with your contracts? Let's look at those issues for a few minutes. A contract's pretty simple, to be honest. You're going to get a service or get a product, and you're going to pay for it. That's it. All the stuff in between is when the lawyers blunt, I screwed it all up. Just being honest. It should be all the legal issues, it's just the way it is. And people say, well, I'm just gonna pay X for the product and then deliver it. Yeah, that's great, but we're the lawyers who kind of hack it up and say, all right, but you need to have these protections in it. And that's just really what a contract boils down to. We didn't find, as I told you at the beginning, I do all business transactions, I'm doing it from the corporate side. So I'm not gonna tell you I have any expertise in any specific scientific area, maybe Alan in the plant trademark side of it. That's why we built that team that way. But in that, that's what a contract is. But let's say you have a dispute with someone in the contract. First question is, what law controls? Second of all, can you sue in court, federal court, even state court, for a cannabis-based issue because federally it's illegal? Some people say you can. Can you file bankruptcy? Federal bankruptcy is controlled by the federal law. You go kaputs. So that's how I'm going to get to in a second. But think about that. Okay, we have a dispute. Now, what form are we going to go to? There's some recommendation that you go to an arbitration forum, you go to a mediator, you go to some sort of independent, non-judicial, I say judicial, non-formal judicial, non-courthouse to resolve your disputes. Look at those issues. Huge issues. This is the in-between when the lawyers muck it all up. But we're looking at it from a perspective of how can we make sure that if this dispute arises, we're going to resolve the dispute effectively. I see people shaking their head in this room in the back of how the contracts deal with it. They know exactly the problem that's going on. If I've been that problem, they said, well, if I sue, will the court recognize it? And the court might say, look, I don't recognize this as legitimate. You're in violation of this, therefore you don't have a standing to sue. It's rare, but it can happen. There's judges out there, trust me. And Alan and I've been, he's in a different world from the patent side and the trademark side, but the judge I'm sure he's been in front of and the judicial officer he's been in front of, they're North Pole, South Pole, just like I've been. So it's very unique in that. Let's say you're a landowner. You want to lease out your property. In many cases, you must have a lease before you can apply. Kind of chicken and the egg situation. So I'm going to spend a ton of money for 2 years to lease a place with the hope that I get approved. And then if you don't get approved, what happened to those 2 years of rent I've paid? And the landlord's like, well, wait a minute. No, you're running a cannabis business, it's illegal. I got a loan on this property. That loan is a federally secured loan. Can I even do this? Or I went out by this. So those are two different things. As a landowner, will it affect your mortgage if you're financing in any capacity, if you own it outright? And then the question is, how do I get this person or this group out if something goes haywire? The biggest issue is obviously, in the case of a landowner, would be forfeiture. The government comes in and gives you a notice and says, hey, we're coming in because you're running an illegal operation, we're going to seize your materials. That would be, in my case, as a landowner, the immediate, you're out, done, get out. Can you do it that fast? Maybe. Go to court. Likely. Can I find, there's these things called green riders, they're coming out where there's language in which the tenant is required to give immediate notice and then there's an opportunity for the landlord to basically get out of the lease pretty quickly. If you're not out by a certain deadline, basically they're locked out. The question is, can you do that in California because the real estate laws are a little bit different? Can you make that owner's type of contract? Obviously, it's super in favor of the landlord, or landlord. I know I had a meeting yesterday with someone, and the first question was, so what's your experience in the cannabis world? I said, well, I've been practicing 25 years. Of those 25, I've been probably in about 5 or 6 years doing it with regards to companies that relate to growers, relate to accessories. You know, what's your interest? What's your real interest in cannabis? Are you really, I basically was asking if I was a user of cannabis, which is a pretty unique question to ask, especially as a lawyer. And he's a landowner. I asked him why. He goes, because I'm about to do something that may ride the fence. I want to know what your position is on how you look at it socially. Forget your legal perspective. I didn't really have one. Didn't really care. But it gave me insight on what people are thinking from that side. I never thought about why is he asking this question. His purpose in asking that question was he wanted to know if I'm really involved in this or am I just doing this? Like, do I get it? Have I seen it? I've seen the gray market. I went to college, I guess about 40 miles away, UC Santa Barbara. I passed this city a lot. And we were in that black market, a lot of people, not black, I'm saying we, but a lot of people were in that black market back at that time, which are now getting into that market. And I understood now this man was in that space at the same time. And he was asking me questions that were real questions as to who am I getting in business with? He was asking me transparency questions to me. Do you really know this business or are you just in the business? My point in that is, as a landowner, he wanted to, I'll say, ride the fence on some things. And I said, well, you can do what you want, but here's some of the avenues from a practical standpoint of what's going to happen. And I say practical standpoint, you may run afoul of the law if you do this, or you may not. And that's where landowners are not sure what to do right now. He's trying to get as much information as him as to who's working with and who's going to bring in and people are bringing in, as well as the team that's behind him to help resolve the issues. And I have to sit here and tell him frankly, look, whether I use as in the past or haven't used or I'm just an inhaler or not, a smoker, not an inhaler, whatever that term might mean to him, is the idea there is he wants to know that if I do this, if I take the route of bringing this company in under the radar, what are my liabilities personally? How are you going to get me out of the problem? So I asked all the people you work with, and you look to your left and right, and think, are those people able to provide you, and that team provide you with an out for something? Landlord, this is, remember, looking at it from a perspective of someone who owns land. A different perspectives, a lot of landowners out there that want to get in space, and he's not sure how to get in space. He's really scared of what he's asking me. He's asking me a lot of questions. He's not sure what he wants to do. He wants me to give him an answer. And he's trying to get around the answer by saying, yeah, you're a lawyer, you're this and you're that, but I can't give certain answers. Because as you probably well know, so at the beginning there's the federal side of it, and there's the state side of it. And as a lawyer, we have a little bit of wiggle room in that. It's a little bit of a roundabout story to get to the point of what people are thinking. And it gave me a real good perspective for coming today of what he's thinking. He's got a lot of land, and he wants to know how he can set up product, payment, and get protected. So, big issue to think about, big issue to kind of focus on. Also back to employees. The other issue is employees is, once you have an employee on staff or employees on staff is, people want to use at the job, not use at the job. Those are issues that are no different than any other business. There are the typical issues that deal with benefits and rights and things like that. Just be really cognizant of the employee side of it. I can't emphasize that enough. Contracts I talked about. Let's talk about distribution real quick. So I think there's 6 contiguous states that we look at, from Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, that touch each other. There's some concept about whether you can go through interstate commerce. So you take people ask me the other day, all right, I'm going to Idaho. Don't go. If you have anything in your pocket, or anything, well, what do you mean? I got a medical license to use it here in California, it's legal. Don't go. Now, recently, this last 2 weeks, I think, the airports are now allowing some of it. We're not sure who's allowing it. I mean, how much that, first I can't really figure out how to read your license sometimes, so I'm not sure how to figure out whether cannabis is going to be going through a CBD or what have you, but TSA is having a little issue with that, but if you're transporting over state lines, you're probably violating the law. So there's a whole concept of now maybe having with the State Rights Act and some other acts, a compact maybe that could possibly eventually evolve where you might be able to have similar compact they did in the South with the banking for those states down the road to collectively create a pact to allow interstate commerce, which would be very unique. So distribution is difficult. Depending on what you're distributing and where you're distributing to, it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And getting the product is difficult. In the case of the local dispensary here, I'm sure, or dispensaries here, I'm sure there are issues on getting product and whether they can even get the product in. It's not made in the state. Huge issue. huge issues. We talk about record keeping. This is again daily. We go back to transparency. Keep everything. Transactions, issues related to contracts, payments, things like that. Probably on the cash side of it. Document. Can't emphasize that enough. We talk about real estate issues and whether you want to buy or lease. You know, those issues come up, not from a landlord's perspective, but from a business perspective, what to do. Many of you are probably going to lease just because of the way it is. If you have the ability to buy a building or buy a property, that's great. It alleviates a lot of problems, I think, especially owner outright. But within those, for those businesses that are conducting now, the big issue goes back to my pile of cash, security issues. Without going into detail, there are always security issues in this business, but it's no different than any other business that carries a large volume of cash. People come in and claims can be made by third parties if they're injured. God forbid something happens during something that you didn't expect. The security, there's a lot of issues that come up in these facilities. And, you know, do the police come in and assist you with them because you have your own armed guard service or your own security service? Are they really helpful? No, I don't know the answer. I presume this city, I think it would be. I have no reason not to believe that. I think there's support from the police staff and the administration here. No doubt about that. But other cities, they may not want to come out. You know what? I have no reason to go. They got their own deal. That's not, you know, they'll come out, of course, to investigate, don't get me wrong. But they come out all the time. There's constant problems going on. So security is a big issue. Maybe not per se exactly in this community, but I think it could become an issue no matter what, because it goes back to the banking issue, cash and carrying cash around. Obviously, in your businesses, you know, back to transparency issues. I talk about this is for most businesses, but the cannabis side, security cameras as well. In many cases, depending on not being the local location, but depending on how you enter and exit, things like that. Consider. One of the big issues I think that, and Alan probably attests to it, is product liability issues. So if you're making a product or selling a product, in this space particularly, there's difficulty right now because there's not a way to really, and I was talking to one of the individuals here today about it, there's not really a way to quantify the potency of certain things. Yeah, we have an understanding of what the potency of a certain strain may be, but how it may affect me compared to Alan's can be completely different. No different than if I drank alcohol and he drank alcohol, it's going to affect us possibly completely different. And with that, I may get sick over it. He may not. So there's a product liability if you're making product or selling product is, for those that sell product, for example, one of the big issues is who you're, back to your partners, who you're working with, what liability insurance do they have, what warranties are you given, have there been defects? These are real aerial concepts to think about because there might be third-party claims. I happen to, example, let's say I happen to use, I had some wheat chocolate, for example, and it was a bad piece for some reason. I got in the car and drove. But yeah, it's not gonna affect. I crashed the car, and I proceed to hurt someone else. And that third party sues me. I'm gonna now sue the person who got the wheat chocolate because that affected me this way. I wasn't supposed to do that. It's supposed to not make me sleepy or what have you. You gave me a bad batch, whatever. So now this whole circular thing gets into play, and now you've got to get all the lawyers involved. So those are issues too that come up. And those are no different than anything else, but in the food industry, it's a big issue. So look at it from the food industry. That's kind of what, or from the Morrison and Salt lawsuits with regards to nicotine and things like that. Are those going to come down the pike eventually? Maybe. It might. So product liability issues are big. Packaging, a big issue. Disclosures. Alan mentioned FDA approval. If you can even get it. Right now, it's not happening. For the most part. And there's certain very small way to do it. Well, actually small. There's a certain small mechanism you can use to do it. Disclosures. Youth. Youth's going to be a big issue. Obviously, the biggest thing would be gummy bears, right? You see ads for them. That's a big issue right now. Okay, are the ads legitimate ads in the sense, are they targeting children or are they targeting adult use? From this one, this is more adult use. Where do you cross that line, where does your ad now cross the line to be potentially problematic? So, you know, again, I preface this conversation with thinking about whether you sell water or a widget or what have you. A lot of these issues are central to all businesses, in the cannabis world specific. I think it's a little bit higher, because obviously it's on the radar. It's on the radar every day, for the most part. Let's go into just a little, I got two more little areas I'm going to cover. Now you got your business up and running, you're compliant, you've applied, people may ask me, well, what do I can do for compliance? Just fill out the paperwork correctly. To be honest with you. That's the hardest part. So that's the hardest part. In some cases, it takes quite a long time. And frankly, some of the applications, and I'm not saying for this city in particular, but some applications contradict each other. You fill out a box, you check it, and it leads you out another box which you can't answer. So what do? You're stuck. And it's not done intentionally. It's just the way some of the applications roll when you fill them out. You know, when you want to answer questions about participants and what have you, you may not be able to answer the next question because they don't meet that standard. But there's no option. You need to get through the application, and your time's ticking. So in those cases, you know, make sure you pick the phone up and get someone live and try to figure it out to get through the process. But make sure your application is really clean. So that's one of the big ones. And be ready to adapt. I'm going to go to an issue that I find that people may have taken oversight of, especially in the space. The space is niche specific to this. Chris Gonzalez is an owner within the cannabis business. And I commit a crime of some sort. I'm on a license. Is that license now in jeopardy because I'm on it and I've now engaged in some content that would make that license compromised? The answer is probably. What's your obligation as the license holder to notify the agency, hey, one of our owners has just been picked up for X, Y, and Z? Or do you say nothing? The rules will probably tell you you're obligated to tell the agency that one of our owners has now crossed the line and is now potentially jeopardizing the license. If you don't, then what? What's the ramification? Suspension, loss, potential loss for future applications. So this goes to the ownership, back to the ownership, and what you, as a business role, we're going to come in and come out. As a new owner comes in, they want to influx a new cash. Are you required to go out there and list that individual for as a new owner? The answer is likely yes, almost 100% yes. And if you don't, then it goes back to the question, are you compromising the license? I think you probably don't. Be transparent, be upfront, document it. If you have a question, pick up the phone. Call us, call another lawyer, call whoever that can give you advice on how to interpret it. That's kind of how, that's typically the life of the cannabis people coming in, coming out. Changing the lease, does that affect the license? Because your license was issued under property 123 Main Street. Now you're going to 456 South Street. Do I need to make a notification? The answer is probably yes. And if not, still document it to make sure that you're not in any crime. This is really the big thing that we do from our side as lawyers is we're really risk managers. That's a good way to think about it. We're just reducing risk. That's really what it comes down to. We're asking to be in compliance, risk compliance / risk management. That's what we do. That's really what we do. You come to us and say, hey, I'm about to do this. We tell you, here's the pros, the cons, the negatives. Yes, you can do it, maybe you can't. We'll document it for you and tell you, go with it. But we have to go back to the rule. And you're not going to find a lawyer out there that knows every rule. Trust me, there's too many. There's too many bills that are going on. I think there's, I want to say 25 right now, maybe, out there. This state alone probably got a handful going. Probably about that many too. Some are going to get there, some are going to fail. You know. So I got about 15 minutes left, and we'll open the questions.
Can I just say something about
Of course.
employees while you're on that subject? When you're hiring people, say they have a green card, which means they can work here legally, you may not want to employ somebody who can legally work here, who is not a US citizen, not because it could necessarily backfire on you, but because it could backfire on them. And is it really fair to them if they don't know, as they probably don't, that they may seriously be thinking either now or next week or next year of applying to be naturalised as a US citizen? If it comes out that they've been working in the cannabis industry, they will probably be denied their opportunity to become a US citizen. So I would at least be telling anyone who's applied for a job with you, who says, I can work here legally because I have a green card, is I just think it's fair to that person to say, well, if you come and work here, there is a risk that you may never be able to, A, change your status to US citizenship. And, you know, if the world goes mad, you may even have that green card yanked away from you. And, you know, if they still say, I want it, I want it, I want it, as Chris says, document it. Because, you know, it's a real concern for legal immigrants that they may, you know, they may lose their legality and they may almost certainly be denied petition for naturalisation.
And we have in our office an immigration group that's led by two people who've been here for years. In one case, actually my wife, been here 25 years. And this has been a discussion for us as to the status, but not from the cannabis world. Look at it also from, she doesn't look at it just from the topic of cannabis. It's just talking from the employer side. We bring a lot of employers. Is even the undocumented workers, we bring them on. You're directly in violation of law. No doubt about that. If that comes out, then what? You probably will be, possibly could be blackballed from a future license down the road. First of all, you'll be taken, your one, if it comes out, your one you have now will probably be taken away. You may be blackballed down the road for that violation. So I think as an employer, again, going back to the employees, some of you here I know are employers, is look at it from both sides of it. The documented worker and the undocumented worker. Both hurt you in some capacity, or could hurt you, or could hurt someone in that capacity. And that's the worst thing, I think, especially. That's 1 hour. Pretty good.